We pointed and laughed at him. "You're eating dog shit, you dumb cunt." He started crying and throwing up. I then kicked him in the balls. When this channel gets bigger, I will do a giveaway for some of the first subscribers, so you better subscribe now to not regret it later. Try to bully me, new boss. This will be your shortest job ever. Back in the day, I worked as an independent ig consultant and was hired on along with another independent to subcontract on a team for a major consulting house. We'll call it CH. Everyone else on the team was a CH employee. The two of us were not supposed to tell the client that we weren't part of CH, but the client figured it out pretty fast because we independents were doing most of the work while CH's code monkeys were busy filling out spreadsheets all day and going on team building exercises. But I digress. The project ran past its initial deadline and my contract expired. I stayed on a week-to-week basis as a professional courtesy to get the project finished because I liked the client, if not the team. Unfortunately, the CH project manager was booked somewhere else for his next gig, and they brought in a new guy to replace him. Let's call him David Stress. David flew in on a Monday morning to get the project handed off to him and immediately started pissing on everything to mark his territory. He was derogatory and belittling to the team and liked to raise his voice. I was working in my office, well, actually a closet with folding tables that I shared with 3 other team members and didn't hear what he was saying out in the main room, but I could sure hear his tone. Then he burst into the office and demanded, "How are we doing? Specific payroll related conversion task?" I said, "We are using Program X." He waved his hand dismissively and scoffed. "That's stupid. Program X won't work for this. You need to do something else." The other indie was in the room at the time and she saw me coming up out of my chair. She told me later she thought I was going to deck him. I knew he was full of shit because I wrote Program X. It was custom code for this project and he had no way of knowing what it would or wouldn't do. He was just trying to bully me and be the alpha dog. I did not deck him. Instead, I went to the client's payroll manager, with whom I'd been working closely for months, and who was driving the client side of the project. I laid it on the line. I said, "Look, I know you know I don't work for CH. I'm here on an independent contract. That contract is up, and I've been working here week to week, just to get you guys through." She told me she was aware of this. Okay. This new guy, David Stress, is a bully and a blowhard, and I won't work with him. I have no contract at this point, and with him running the project I won't be back next week. I'm not asking you to do anything specific about it, I'm just letting you know as a courtesy, so you can plan to transition my work to someone else. She sat back in her chair, thought a moment, and said, "Okay. Thanks for letting me know." 2 hours later, David Stress was removed from his new position. The payroll manager, faced with losing the one technical guy on the team who actually knew what was going on with a very complicated payroll system, called CH and said, "We don't want this new guy, take him away." CH rearranged some things to keep the original project manager with the project. The funniest part of the whole thing was that CH had scheduled a welcome dinner for David at a posh steakhouse that evening. Rather than create the further embarrassment of cancelling the dinner, they actually went ahead with it as a farewell dinner for David, who had been on the project for less than 1 day. It was fun to watch him try to put on a brave face for that. Neighbors ran over our fence. Dad installed concrete fence that wrecked 8 of their cars. We live in a small private neighborhood. The neighbors are related to us more or less distant relatives. Everybody here is a complete nut job. They were constantly arguing over decades before me or my brother were even born. Our property line is kinda like a square, and it is surrounded by road from 2 sides. Keep in mind that on one part of the road we let our neighbors use 1 square meter of the land, so they could use the road safer and not damage our property. This is crucial information. This road is made of gravel. The neighbors want my parents and only my parents to pay for the entire cost to lay an asphalt road. My dad and my mother are constantly fixing potholes for 90% of the road, so naturally, our neighbors thought that they will to pay for the asphalt road. Classic r/choosing beggars. Fast forward 20 years, the road remains gravelish. Nobody wanted to pay for the asphalt road. One day my neighbors order a massive truck filled with tons of wood. The truck driver runs over our fence. Nobody wanted to pay for the damage. Our fence is made out of multiple bushes, trees and a little bit of metal fence too. These plants were now completely destroyed and a part of metal fence completely bent. We had to replant these plants and place a new metal fence. My father told me this was not the first time this happened but actually third. I couldn't believe it when I heard this. So this is where the revenge begins. My father is a police officer in the department where they mostly handle frauds, drug busts etc. He knows the law well. He dug up the property line marker and placed plastic barrels filled with rocks on our property. In the next 6 hours 3 of our neighbors came knocking on the door because they hit our plastic barrels filled with rocks. They were angry and wanted to call the cops, but they never did. Because everybody knew that little part of land was still our property. One neighbor in particular threatened my dad that he will throw a fucking pickaxe at my father's back. Over the period of 1 year these neighbors hit the barrels so much with their cars that the barrels are now worthless. My dad was furious and he changed his petty revenge into a ProRevenge. He cut some wood to use it as a mold. He bought cement, sand, and metal poles. One peaceful afternoon my father and I cemented that whole part of the land and placed some lovely flowers on top. So when they hit the concrete they can smell our flowers of victory/defeat. As we expected 5 neighbors in total wrecked their cars on the new fence and nobody came knocking on the door. Relentless bully who stole our stuff every day gets tricked into eating chocolate covered dog turd. When I was 7, 1981 in Sydney, I lived in a quiet street. There were 4 other kids my age and we were all good friends. One day this kid moves in. His name was Ronnie. He was 2 years older and a spoiled little brat. We had to walk past his house when going anywhere, the shop, the park, school etc, so he was hard to avoid. His bedroom window overlooked the street too. He immediately started bullying us, going through our pockets and school bags, and taking everything he could. We were timid kids, and he was extremely large. The guy's dad was also large, and tattooed up, so I think our parents were a little afraid of them too. We complained. Our parents tried talking to his, but he'd deny everything, and his parents believed him, and actually told us to fuck off. Revenge part. One Easter my mother was making chocolates, and we had an idea. We stole a little molten chocsy and one of the plastic molds, and placed a small fun-sized piece of dog turd in it, put it in a friend's fridge, then wrapped it in colored foil. We strutted up and down in front of Ronnie's house until he came out. We had real chocolates too to make it seem legit. He predictably took the bait, demanded the chocsys or he'd bash us. We were all actually shit scared we might get caught. But we only have one left. Ronnie. He snatched it, unwrapped it and stuck the whole thing in his mouth. Then pushed me and called me a dumbwog. A few seconds later he started dry retching. We pointed and laughed at him. "You're eating dog shit, you dumb cunt." He started crying and throwing up. I then kicked him in the balls. Someone pantsed him, but I don't remember who. It was a good day. He never fucked with us again. Too mean. My last roommate was the worst person I have ever lived with and maybe even ever known. He's the son of one of my parents' friends, and he was in the States for school. I had a 2-bed apartment at the time, and gave him the extra room instead of making it my man cave for the 6 months he lived with me. Supposed to be longer, but you will see why. This guy never did any chores, never bought groceries. Ate all of my food, even leftovers from when I go out. Always left water running, lights on, and TV on. He went to class maybe once a week and spent the rest of his time at bars or playing video games. He was a freaking nightmare. One time I came home to the TV on, all lights on, fridge wide open and his room was blaring music, but he was nowhere to be found. I thought I had been robbed at first or a bum broken, but nothing was super out of place. Comes back 4 hours later and asks me why I turned off the TV and his music. I asked him why. Did he even have all of that on when he left the house? He said he wasn't going to be gone for long and left it on. I told him, "You're wasting electricity that he doesn't even pay for, since his parents pay me." He just goes to his room and slams the door. The absolute last straw for me was when I get a call from my credit card provider asking me if I meant to spend $5,000 today, and I told them that all I bought was coffee today. This little prick had stolen my credit card, went to Vegas, and started buying bottles. So I put a stop on my card, report it stolen, and make sure that the next time he uses it, police are notified. He eventually gets arrested for stealing, and since it's over $5k it's grand larceny. His parents are begging me and my parents to bail him out and that they'll repay everything with interest, but my parents are on my side and clearly this little emperor needs to learn a lesson. The next day, I hire 2 guys to empty out his room all into the dumpster. As I'm bringing stuff out, something falls out of his desk, little tiny bags of white powder, and in the drawer was a roll of cash. This fool had been selling drugs too. I called the cops and told them the story. They confirmed with LVPD that my story was true. They were very sympathetic to me. The amount of crime this guy was getting in trouble for was increasing dramatically. Not only was he guilty of a crime in Nevada, but now in California as well. I gave the cops all of his belongings, and over the next few days, they updated me on even more crimes he's committed. Apparently, his computer had conversations of him between minors and him asking for indecent things. There were conversations between him and his friends on wanting to plan a murder. He had 4 other phones and dozens of credit cards belonging to other people, so he was doing identity theft as well. By the time the cops were done, they were astonished, and the kid was basically looking at 20+ years in federal prison. The weird thing was that his parents were not broke. They were very well off and provided everything to him. He never needed money, but still sold drugs and did identity theft for no good reason aside from maybe him being bored or something. My parents no longer speak to his parents, but they were very ashamed of their son and paid me back for all of the grief. Last I heard, he's still in prison till this day and will be deported when he gets out.